Let's start our meeting here. This is a planning construction meeting, June 7th, 2022. First item, roll call.
Okay. Trustee Sperber.
Here.
Trustee Kramer is absent. Trustee Carey.
Here.
Trustee Chaplin.
Here.
Okay, we've got 3 today.
No, we don't have. So that's fine. Thank you. All right. Public comments. Do we have any public comments?
No public comment.
All right. Next one is the minutes of meeting. Does anybody have any changes, or does somebody like to make a motion on our May 17th, 2022 minutes?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes as presented.
But a second.
Trustee Chaplin.
Oops, I'm sorry. Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
I apologize.
Oh, no problem. We have a first and second. Any other comments? None. With that, I'll call. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Next item, number 4, we have nothing for information discussions. Let's go right on to, we have 2 items here. Item 5.1, our first item. Ted, are you going to actually give her a little talk on this item here? Thank you.
So does, excuse me, this morning we're going to talk about the admin, oh man, airfield.
Hang in there.
These allergies are killing me.
Oh.
The airfield administrative and airport duty manager's office remodels. Now, this is one project, and it has 2 separate buildings. So, of course, we're here to get the authorization for the president and CEO to execute a professional service agreement for professional design services for the airfield administrative and airport duty managers' offices at the Reno Tahoe International Airport with Paul Cavan in the amount of $156,100. This is in support of our strategic priorities that are listed here. A little background. So the RTA staff, we looked at all the empty buildings we have. We wanted to make sure that we got the right location for each division and that it's not going to be a stopgap type deal. It's going to be a long-term area for these divisions to go into with good, solid buildings. So we had the chief of operations, the manager of airport operations, the director of facility and maintenance, and the chief planning and infrastructure officer all got together as we found these buildings. They discussed it and they all agreed on these proposed locations we're going to be talking about. The airfield maintenance is the old Enterprise building. It's over on Air National Guard Way. It's a good building, got a nice metal roof to it. The building for the airport duty managers is the old base building that's attached to the old tower. Like I said, the buildings are structurally sound. Now there's some parts of the building, the electrical system that need a little bit of upgrade. The heating and air conditioning systems need to be done because they haven't really been used, and a lot of it was tore out when the FAA left. And we have some flooring and ceilings to put in and the walls to actually make the offices. Both buildings will provide great buildings into the future. So airfield maintenance, right now the offices that are there are inadequate, they're inefficient, they're away from each other, and the offices don't have very good air conditioning and heating. They don't meet ADA either. So that building was built in 1978. Since then, their admin staff has increased with additional supervisors. And when they did these offices, they took away storage areas to make the office. So we don't have as much storage for needed parts, oil, fluids, stuff like that. So an airfield maintenance is responsible for our runways, taxiways, airfield lighting, airfield markings, snow removal. They take care of all the fencing, and they also do the vehicle and equipment maintenance. So they're quite busy out there. And all this is in support of our 139 certification. So this is the building we're talking about here. It's the old Enterprise building. Great building. It's got, like I said, a nice metal roof on it. Enterprise, when they had this building, they took fairly good care of this building. It's reverted back to us, and it's a perfect location for the Airfield Maintenance team. And if I can get this right. This one. All right. So here's the Airfield Maintenance Complex. This is the main maintenance building right now. And then this is the location here. So it's all in close proximity. There's also right here our landscaping shed, and there's other buildings in here. So it's all part of that complex, and it'll be really convenient to have that. So move on to now the background on the airport duty managers. They're currently in the warehouse, the Ava 3 warehouse, that's also got aircom and purchasing in it. It's remote to the runways and airfield operations. So when they get out of there and they need to get up to it, they're running into tugs, shipping containers, and I got a nice little picture to show you here in a minute. If there's airplanes moving in and out, it's all going to delay their response to different emergencies. The new location will have a direct connection right to the airfield. And of course, they have increased staff. And their role is, like I said, emergency responses, both airside and landside, winter operations, snow removal, wildlife problems. They also inspect the runways and taxiways. They escort different airplanes coming in that may have to go to a non-standard gate. And of course, all this is in part of our 139 certification. So this is the building we're talking about here. Of course, the old tower. This will be their entrance. And right out here, this is taxiway Lima and 725. Plenty of parking. And they'll have windows. You don't think that might not be a big thing, but they'll be able to look out and see what's going on as far as the weather's concerned. And there's plenty of room in this particular building for additional staff. They're only taking half the building. The other half will be remain our airfield electrical shop. So it works out really well. And bam, it's right there. You'll see here in the next slide. So this is their old location here. And this is the new location. And you can see there's taxiway Lima and there's 725. So they come out of here, direct access to Lima, and they're anywhere within minutes of the airfield for an emergency response. Right now, what they have to do is, and this is almost to scale, this little blue dot here of where their offices and how big their offices are. They come out here, they take this route across this dirt road. Here's where they start hitting tug traffic, shipping containers, and the like through here. And down here, this is where our cargo airplanes are. Then they finally get out here to the airside loop road. Now, if they want to go landside, they take that same route and they have to come along here through the main gate and to the loop road. This yellow part here is going to be the Conrack construction area. So when this happens, this area right through here is going to get really congested, and especially right through here. Now, if they want to go landside through all this, rather than take this route, they can go back up this way through a gate to Vassar, over to terminal, down terminal, over to Plum, and then on the loop road. So it's kind of they're tucked away as far as response times. Moving on to the selection of Paul Cabin architecture, we direct selected them based upon the following parameters. They know the services we're asking for. They know our operations here. Especially critical right now is they also know local labor and material costs, because that is so volatile. We all know that. It's changing almost on a daily basis. And their overall performance with us and with other agencies here in the Northern Nevada area is really strong. So the scope of work was provided by the engineering staff. We had input from the Chief of Operations and Safety, the Chief of Infrastructure and Planning, Director of Maintenance, and the Operations Manager. And from that scope, Paul Cavan gave us a proposal based on that, and from design up to and including getting our construction bids. A little background on Paul Cavan's architects. They started in 2013. They have 5 employees. They're a minority-owned DBE business. They've created, completed several projects. The last one being the Customs and Border Patrol building roof replacement. And they're currently, we go out to bid here pretty soon on a roof coating for one of our hangars out on the GAE side. So they're involved with the airport quite a bit. The fiscal impact, this was approved in the 2022-2023 budget as a capital project. And we're talking about these design fees here of $156,100. We'll come back for construction admin, all this here as soon as this job gets bid out and we know who the contractor is. But the overall project's gonna be about $1.8 million. So the staff recommends that the board adopt the following motion. Move to authorize the president and CEO to execute a professional service agreement for professional design services for the airfield administrative and airport duty managers' offices at the Reno Tahoe International Airport with Paul Cavan Architecture in the amount of $156,100. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ted. Questions?
Yes. In relation to the services that the duty officers are providing, they're an essential service at the airport. Are you applying the sections of the building code to ensure that they have 24-hour operations with the redundant systems to this building?
There won't be redundant systems, like 2 air conditioners, and as far as I know, that's not a requirement of their offices. It will be to code. There will be not only the city's inspections, but mine. As most of you guys know, that I'm a certified building official, and so we'll make sure this is all put into code, definitely.
They're the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week face of the airport in any emergency, correct? Are they the 24-hour or every hour of the day emergency responder for the airport?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So I just want to make sure we're looking beyond normal office standards so that their systems are, would meet the standards for like a public safety function, not just a general office. And I only say that as an opinion. I would certainly leave it to your experience. But I don't want to miss opportunities to have necessary redundancies in places like communications and safety. It's not going to flood. It's going to be sustainable. These are older buildings, and I don't want to put a critical function in something that isn't going to have a long lifespan. So if you haven't considered those things, could you just work that into your architectural approach to this project and make sure that we're achieving a very high level of safety for these employees who are first line of defense for the bigger emergencies?
Sir.
And I just couldn't tell that from reading the staff report as to what standard you were building to. But I know with some of my experience, you want to be real careful with public safety responders to make sure that they have redundancy in their systems. So if that can be accomplished, I'm all on board.
Other comments? Carol?
No comments. Thank you.
Would you like to comment? Would you come up here, bro?
And they are
Yeah.
fully mobile. Their vehicles, they have laptops. Yeah, what is
Brian, can you speak in the microphone? Thank you.
Sorry, the ADMs are fully mobile. In their vehicles, they've got a laptop, and they're moving around quite a bit. But to your point, that's a 1957 building, so that it is dated.
I'm dated because that's my year of birth, so okay.
All right, no more comments, and can I get a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to make a motion to approve item 5.1 as outlined by staff.
I have a first, a second. Carol?
Second?
I have a first and second. Any more comments? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you. And Ted, I really liked what you went through on this thing, and I really like the idea that got the different groups together in a central location, and people are thinking about things like that and the interaction of groups, and not going to the most expensive, but things that make some good common sense. And you know, that's a pretty small price for being able to move all that to a central location. So it's a great job, whoever, and staff and everybody on that one. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's go on to 5.2. We have my friend here, Miss Butterfield.
Oh, good morning, everyone. For the record, Lissa Butterfield, Manager, Planning and Environmental Services. And I'm here today to discuss an amendment to a professional services agreement with H&K Architects for the Reno Workspace Study. Just some background. And I know our Chief Planning and Infrastructure Officer, Gary Probert, kind of tipped this up for me at the April board workshop, so you've got some background information on this. But as you know, the original PSA for the workspace study was executed in September of 2021 with H&K Architects. They were supported at that time by HOK, as well as Hendricks and Butler. And the scope for the original work was to evaluate the current and future administrative workspace needs for the airport staff that are based at Reno Tahoe International Airport. While there was a emphasis placed on those administrative functions that really had the land side interface side. Time was also spent looking at all of these areas that you see here, our facilities maintenance, aircom, airside ops, airfield maintenance, and police. The final deliverable was a documentation of the existing issues, the current and future space needs, some configuration options, as well as new locations and alternative uses for existing spaces, as well as rough order of magnitude costs. The primary recommendations included a larger and relocated airside operations staff area, which was just addressed by Mr. Ohm on the previous item, and a development that we are proceeding with immediately. Also, the other two big critical recommendations from this was that we needed a larger and relocated administrative headquarters. Where we're currently located is not the highest and best use for this space, and we are significantly undersized. Additionally, it also called for a larger and relocated police station, significantly larger police station. From a square footage standpoint, the original planning study recommended that the administrative headquarters move from about 35,000 square feet to over 4,000. It did not make a single recommendation. It gave a recommended range based on whether or not we wanted to consider traditional offices, which require a little bit more square footage, or we want to look at some of the more modern office styles where you have larger collaborative space and fewer single-person spaces. For the police station, it recommended essentially a doubling of the existing space, as well as a relocation outside of the airside area to an area that would give them both landside and airside accessibility. 4 sites were recommended for further consideration as part of that study. The new Concourse, or the expanded Concourse area, joined with the Conrac facility, the vacant lot that is next to the Hyatt Place, as well as potentially looking at renting space in existing buildings on Terminal Way. So that study did wrap up in April of this year, and subsequently staff met and discussed next steps in order to address the administrative headquarters need as well as the police station need. And we realized we really needed some more information than what we generated in phase 1 of the study. And so we met with H&K for an amendment discussion, and we agreed that the scope of work that would be needed in the future to address those two is identification of final space programming requirements. We do need to make a decision as to how big that administrative headquarters is. A range isn't going to be good enough. I think my compatriots over in engineering would not appreciate me saying anywhere from 40 to 48,000 square feet is good. Probably want something a little bit more significant. And we need final information in terms of where the locations are going to be, and phasing is really critical, because if the final location for the police ends up being in this space, we need to figure out how to get the administration people outside of this facility quickly. So we will go back and look at some additional potential locations. We'll do a deeper dive into the alternates. We will select preferred alternates for both facilities. There's nothing to preclude them from being in the same building, but the study is going to look at separating them or keeping them together. Then we'll create a detailed basis of design report for the police station as well as the administrative headquarters, with new cost estimates that could allow us to transition for one or both of them to design in the near future, pending funding. In terms of support, H&K Architects is not using HOK or Henriksen Butler for this phase, but they are bringing in OCMI, O'Connor Construction Management, to help with the construction estimates. This would be the tentative milestones for phase 2. Would be kicking off in the June-July timeframe. We anticipate this being about a 6-month effort. We're trying to target getting back to you folks in December with final recommendations, but probably January is a little bit more realistic. That does sync us up really nicely to either request funding during the mid-year process or the next 23-24 fiscal year for design for one or both of these facilities. So consultant background, H&K Architect, they're based here in Reno. They've previously completed 25 projects here for RTAA, most recently the ticketing hall programming study, as well as phase 1 of this study. The fiscal impact, the original PSA was $100,000. This amendment is $289,280. That would bring the full programming study value to $389,280. The original PSA was funded in engineering's operations and maintenance budget in the current, yes, we're still in the current fiscal year, and funding for this amendment is in the 22-23 O&M for the planning department. And this would be staff's recommendation on the motion, and I am happy to answer any questions from the committee.
John?
Could you expand upon H&K's experience with designing police facilities for me?
So they have not they've not designed a police facility. So they do not have experience in that. From the programming standpoint, we are going to be relying on the police unions. The stakeholder groups for the police group are going to include representations from the officers, the K-9 unit, as well as the sergeants and their leadership to help us fully vet out what that site plan looks like. And what the needs are in order to meet the police standards. So we're relying on the police and our ops and public safety to provide a lot of professional input.
A little bit concerned with that because I know that the troops here have not had new police facilities in a long time. You do have experienced officers that know things that I'll never know. But I have some concern that we're maybe missing some of the FBI standards or the NCIS standards, as well as particularly with the chain of custody type stuff and securing of evidence and stuff like that. That's all real specific. And I just want to make sure that a professional has some capacity to undertake that, because it can cost you a case and those kinds of things. Spaces for, like, are you considering hold rooms for suspects, those types of things. I just want to make sure that we maybe delve into that a little more. I'm not opposed to using the professionals we have on our police department, but I just am concerned they may not have had the experience in building a police station or remodeling police stations. So I just want to make sure this team maybe evaluates that. Maybe you look at it, and I trust your professional judgment, of course, but I just think that that's a very touchy area, and it isn't always going to turn out right in some of these things, because it's very legally stringent in terms of that stuff.
And I agree, there are a number of police standards that we can follow, one of which is CALIA standards. And part of our initial meetings are going to be to establish and get agreement on which of the standards, and maybe it's a combination of standards, maybe it's highest standards among, some different ones, but we will be planning to meet that from a planning perspective. I don't like to have standards and not having standards. I want to have targets that I need to reach. And so we will certainly dive into that. The purpose of this is really to get that location really firmed up, the actual space, and the deeper dive will happen in design, which is not part of this contract.
And I just, at the level that you've got, I trust your judgment on it. I just want to make sure we don't miss this step, because it gets real expensive when you miss this step.
Will do.
Carol?
My only question was on the timeline. I don't recall what the original timeline for the relocation and the actual project. But the original one. Are we now 6 to 8 months behind actually executing the relocation and the renovations that are required? Just a question.
Now I have Chris talk on that.
Sure. Chris Cobb, Manager of Engineering Construction, Trustee Chaplain. So the original study that was done by H&K was, here again, more of a planning level effort of identifying areas. So
Got it.
there was nothing as far as when is the next construction phase going to occur. A lot of this is part of our More R&O program that you've heard CEO Griffin talk about. And so where these are falling into place, what you do have going right now is the ticketing hall, the Loop Road, Conrack facilities. Things that were identified with this workspace study, you saw Mr. Ohm just present to you earlier with the airport duty managers and the maintenance administrative offices. Those were easy to pick off. In this case, with the HQ and police, those are a lot larger ticket items that we're looking at, and we're going to have to work with you as trustees on that budgeting. On top of that, you're going to hear from Melissa here pretty quick, is the Concourse. That's another very large ticket item. These are a lot of money. So that timing and that aspect of when we're physically going to go to construction, a lot will depend on this study, where we land and where it makes the
Right.
most sense and what that cost is. Does that answer your question, Trustee Chaplain?
Yeah, it does. That's
Okay.
It was just confirming that I had. We really didn't have a real timeline just because of the
Yes, ma'am.
planning process itself. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And let me ask, because you're
Sure.
following into with the schedule there, it's obviously during this phase, we should be looking at which delivery method we might be using on
Yes, sir.
this thing. And maybe, I don't know which one of you maybe discuss that during this phase, you'll be looking at that also in that scope, I would think. That would help with some of the, right?
Yes, sir, Chair Sperber. We'll be working with that, and I think between our planning and engineering team, and again, working with our executive level staff, what is the best method of delivering this? And as we've all talked about here, is our biggest, greatest concern right now is the supply chain and the cost. Continues, and with that, I'm sorry, labor. We have not gotten out of the labor issue either. So we're looking at every avenue that we're being prudent with what dollars we have and how we do this, and what we build when.
Right, and exactly, and as you and I have talked, long lead items, things that might be owner or supply, there could be all kinds of things to get this thing, because we know we want to do this project fast. And I know it's really tough, so, I just want to make sure we're thinking about that during this phase. A lot of times you can go too far in architecture if you're going to go to a different delivery method. So those are the things I want to make sure during this phase is that you guys are really thinking through that of which method you want to be at the end of here, a recommended method, delivery method. Okay.
And this is Alyssa Butterfield again. Just to add on to that, the schedule that was presented at the board retreat by Mr. Probert assumed this study happened, and it took about a 6-month study. So I believe, I don't remember the months exactly, but the schedule included design for the administrative headquarters starting in calendar year 23, and that the police facility would be 6 to 9 months after in terms of a sequence. So we're still on track based on what was presented at the board retreat.
Got it.
Well, Mr. Chair, I would make the motion.
Thank you.
Would allow on item 5.2, authorization for the president and CEO to execute amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement for the amount of $289,280.
Thank you. Have a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
All right, first and second. Any other comments, guys? All right, call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you, my friend. And I guess you're going to stay around here. I think you've got to. You're up next, which will be 6.1, Concourse study. So might as well stay up, my friend.
Thank you so much. For the record, again, Alyssa Butterfield, Manager of Planning and Environmental Services. I don't have any slides for this update, but I did want to let the Planning and Construction Committee know our progress since the information that was presented on the Concourse study in April at the board retreat. So subsequent to that, we scheduled meetings with our tenants, our airline partners, both corporate as well as the station managers and those who have boots on the ground here. Those workshops happened in late May. They happened on May 25th and May 26th. The workshops went very well. The information was presented. We got quite a bit of feedback during each of those workshops, but we did want to give them time to take it back, to the rest of their teams to kind of noodle on it a little bit. If there's anything we're missing, we need this solution to solve problems not just for the airport authority, but also for our partners who work here. So we do want to make sure we're not missing anything. And so there are subsequent meetings that are scheduled to solicit more feedback. And those meetings are being held on June 9th and June 15th. And once we get that information, we'll certainly share that with the board, most likely at either the July meeting, if we have that information all packaged up together, but I'd like to bring it back to the Planning and Construction Committee at that time. We are also developing a couple of new alternate hybrids based on the feedback that they provided to us in May. They did ask us to look at some other options. So based on the alternates that Mead & Hunt's able to put together, I'm expecting a sneak peek of those later this afternoon. Hopefully we'll either be able to share with you those, or maybe we're going to still work on it a little bit longer. This is the exciting part of alternates, when you go back and forth and you try to make sure that you address as many people's concerns and issues as possible so that the solution really works for all of us. So thank you for the patience you folks are exhibiting as we go through this. I know most of you would like us to take an action sooner rather than later, but if we can get everyone on board with our recommended action, I think that's the best for all of us here. So thank you. And any questions, I'm happy to take.
Questions? No, it sounds exciting. Can't wait to see the next presentation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go on to 6.2. And Carol, I know you got a more fun meeting after here that you're going to leave in a few minutes, correct?
That's correct. It's my fun root canal.
Right. So we all know how much fun it is.
There's
Anyway,
jokes about root canals, I think.
I'm jealous. But is that right, Ann? We'll be able to continue on the items? So, all right. So, thank you, my friend.
All right, thank you. I'll tell you how it goes.
Thank you. We'll vote on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Chris, we're on the project schedule.
Thank you, Chair Sperber. Chris Cobb, Manager of Engineering Construction. Not as many updates as we had just 2 weeks ago, those back-to-back meetings that come real quick together here. But a couple I wanted to definitely identify here. The first is in our AIP program, the STED project that you previously awarded earlier this year. We're still awaiting the grants. And this is in Goes back to DC. I've been working with Ricky Sanchez out of our Phoenix ADO office, working with him to see when these are going to drop. He's hoping here. I tease him. I keep hearing a couple weeks, but he's hoping here very much in the near future to see those grants come our way. Once that occurs, we will rapidly be getting out to STED and working on this. We were trying to do everything we could in our effort to not split between the air races like we have had to do in the past. Once we get the grants, we'll be sitting down with our contractor and determining if we have to, break the schedule on either side of it, or if we're able to get it all done before the air races. So that's the first one on here that the construction date slid out. The next is
And on that one, you've talked to the contractor. They're ready to go. They're
itching, ready,
itching to
waiting,
go.
basically parked at the gate. Please tell us you got the grant. We're ready to
That's
go.
what I thought they would be. I just want to.
Most definitely. Our next one is the ticketing hall. So everything pretty much stayed the same. The one item I'd like to call your attention to is in July, you see a board action item in there. That is our enabling projects, the pre-packages to the CMAR that we're doing. We're out right now on, working with McCarthy. So this is prior to the main GMP that we'll be bringing to you in August. But these are items that have long lead times. So what we're looking at here is the HVAC system, getting that equipment on order. It is a very long lead time, and it's also something if say in August for some reason we couldn't come to something with McCarthy, we still have an ability to do the project. No different. The other item is roofing, and the third item most likely is going to be enabling work that once we know what that GMP is in August, we're able to release McCarthy to do a bunch of prep work before the construction actually starts September 12th. This would be bringing in, setting up their construction staging area, prepping stuff out in the loop road that'll have to occur so that starting September 12th, if we're all hunky-dory with McCarthy, we're able to start September 12th in the ticketing hall, actually start the project. So we're really trying to phase this and line this up where we have a lot of efficiency in how this is going to flow through and be accomplished. So that's why you do have that board action in July to give us these three enabling ideas going and approved. So we're good to go.
And Chris, I want to say, I know you and I've discussed this. Nowadays, that's so critical what you're doing. Long lead items, things to get, materials that we need. And I'm very glad that you're doing that and getting these things so we can really go on schedule on these projects. It's probably more critical than it's ever been on this type of thing. And it will be on some of these other projects as we're talking.
It'll continue throughout a lot of our projects coming forward. And this isn't something that is we just made up. This is something that is standard with doing a CMAR. You see the school district do this very much with their schools, and they'll have a lot of pre-packages for that equipment just because whether or not that CMAR builds it or not, they need that equipment as part of that design. But with these lead times that we're just seeing that are just getting further and further out, you're trying to be smart about how you're approaching this so that once you start construction, it flows through. It doesn't stop all of a sudden. You're going, well, we're going to wait for the next 6 weeks for the air conditioner to arrive and make things difficult. Time is money. That is the key here. The next item on here I'd like to call your attention to is Blue Lot reconstruction. And a great partnership here again with our departments working together. And this being land site operations working with engineering. We had all intent purposes, once it's awarded, we were going to start after the holiday weekend. Land site operations had already been looking at how they could flow through and had already stopped kind of using that lot. So we were able to work with land site operations and actually get in there 5 days prior than we'd planned on. So this here again, trying to partner with our contractor and give him the most amount of time to get out of there. What we're shooting for is that July 1 date, getting vehicles in there. So great partnership. Truly appreciate Brandon and his team in Landside Ops, Bryce working with them, and then working with S&C to get them in there and get that project going. And we're really on schedule right now. So it's looking really good. We haven't found the mammoths that Bryce had mentioned in his presentation. None of that has occurred, and we're really excited about it. And I'm sorry to see Trustee Rose leave. I was going to say, construction's always exciting. It's never, it's never just standard. There's always excitement in construction. Some of it you don't like, a lot of it we do. But Blue Lot is going really well. And then the last one is you see the first project popping up on our next year's budget, CIP 22-23, which you heard from Mr. Ohm today on our airfield and maintenance admin offices. Design package that's starting out with the intent that we're wrapping up in the winter and looking to bid this rapidly and looking for that opportunity. We're watching and seeing if that's going to be a great time to bid it, because it is tenant improvements inside. We're minimizing what has to occur outside. So we're kind of hoping those winter months we'd get a contractor that's really looking to be inside and a little bit warmer and be more successful. Here again, as we go through this, we're going to be watching for any long lead items. So with that, your next page is not too exciting. Is our follow-on. With that, I in talking to Chair Sperber, Conrac is going real well with our partnership here again with Conrac Solutions. Brad Erger and AED and Tony Carotolo from engineering are really our front for that and working with that team, and that's been going really well. Amy and the PGL team, Amy Barnes with Conrac, we just had a meeting yesterday with City of Reno and going through their permitting process and what's required with their whole team from their economic development section. And so that was a very positive meeting, giving that design team a lot of direction. So I'm very excited about how this is moving forward and what we're taking into consideration with that based on that site selection. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on the schedule or any of the project status updates that you may have read.
It sounds exciting. Drilling's going to start soon over in that Conrac, or
Some
'cause
geotechnical
obviously
investigation.
we want to make sure, yeah,
Yes, sir. We
what
want to
we
make
find
sure
there.
that it stands up once it's built.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that here in a couple weeks,
Yeah,
we
kinda.
will make sure that we get that geotechnical done and the footings are right.
Right. And then there were some other things on there that we had to get approvals, federal approvals, and so those are coming in the next few months, right? Just remind me again, I know you've discussed that, but I know that's a critical date to us, right?
Yes. Alyssa Butterfield for the record. The current FAA approval process that's going on right now for the Conrac Solutions development is the Section 163 review process. We have gone back and forth with the FAA, providing them some supporting documentation. There's a lot of land under that footprint that has been acquired over the years through different means, so it's been pretty complicated, to put it mildly. But we did receive a heads up from the FAA that the draft letter was going to be ready for ADO approval later this week. And so that potentially means we could be seeing something in the next couple weeks in terms of their approval or disapproval.
That's fantastic.
We're really pleased on how quickly that's happened.
Exactly.
Thank you.
That's great. Now, if Ricky would get you some money up instead, we'd be okay.
Little money goes a long way.
No, that sounds great. All right, let's go on. Anything, number 7, which are the status reports. Is anybody want to bring up anything? Sean, do you want to bring up any item?
I'm good, sir.
How about you?
I'm good, Chair Sperber.
I guess it's just us three, huh? I'm good too. Okay, next thing is any member questions, comments, items put on. Sean?
I have none, sir.
I have none either. Next one, public comments. Do we have any?
No public comment?
Okay, we move for adjournment. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. It was good.
Thank
got
you.
it in now.
Recording stopped.